forward. And welcome everyone to our May BCPC advisory meeting. Thank you for being here. I will continue monitoring the wait room to let folks in as they show up. Shelby Arthur, I'm the Tri-County Coordinator for the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast. Our team is obligated to other endeavors today. And so we have Tim Tierney with us, who is part of the BCPC team helping us with data collection and analysis, a little bit of GIS mapping. Tim, say hi.
Hello, everybody. Tim here, doing GIS support for Broadband Consortium.
But Bill Simmons, Russ Levenway, and Michael Foote are not able to be here today, so they'll join us again in June. A little overview of the agenda. We'll go through a round of introductions. I think most of the people on this call are regulars, but just in case there's anybody new joining us, I want to make sure we all know who's in the room. So I'll ask you to do a really brief, hello, who are you, where are you connected? We'll run through some regional updates, specifically about the digital equity BEAD working meeting coming up on June 1st, and a couple of CASF application updates, and then leave time for discussion around last mile, specifically setting your local priorities and really integrating this discussion throughout the entire broadband deployment and launch cycle. And leave plenty of time at the end for a roundtable discussion and announcements from partners. So if you have anything that you'd like to share with everyone on the call, we'll have plenty of time at the end of the call to do that. So if we could get started, again, just your name, your organization, the role in the organization, what areas do you serve in our Tri-County region? And I'll stop the share so we can call on folks. You've met me and you've met Tim. I'm going to go ahead and call out Petra Gomez to go next, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Petra Gomez. I'm with the Santa Barbara Foundation. I'm Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships, and the Santa Barbara Foundation, in collaboration with the Broadband Consortium, are leading the Digital Equity Coalition for Santa Barbara County. Now go ahead and turn it over to Steve.
This Steve?
Sure, that works.
Steve Weingart with Ridge Communications. We are based in Ventura County and in the San Francisco Bay Area. We engineer, permit, build, and maintain fiber optic, wireless, and cellular networks for customers such as Verizon Wireless, T-Mobile, AT&T, Crown Castle.
And I failed to mention that Bruce Bensley's on the call. He's part of our BCPC team too. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Bruce.
Hey, all. Thanks, Shelby. I've missed several of these. I end up conflicted somehow on these days, and I will have to duck out early. Hi, Bruce Bensley, President and CEO, Economic Development Collaborative. Thrilled to have been for several years now the host for the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast. Good to see y'all. Thanks.
And since we're in EDC, go ahead, Jamie Fall, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shelby. Hi, everyone. Jamie Fall, Workforce and Economic Strategies Director for the EDC in Ventura County. I'm leading our digital upskilling initiative.
Thank you. Let's head over to Terry Theobald. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Shelby. Terry Theobald, Ventura County.
Yeah, and Chris Sherwin. We'll come back around to you. Let's go, Brian Chung.
Yeah, Brian Chong, City of Moore Park. I run our Public Information and Legislative Affairs Division, which includes our broadband efforts. And I believe I have contracted with 6 people in this call in the past on related issues.
There you go. Jory Wolf.
Good morning, everyone. Jory Wolf with Magellan.
Miguel Perez.
Hi, everyone. Miguel Perez, City of Santa Paula.
You know, Eleanor Gardner.
Good morning, everyone. Eleanor Gartner, Public and Government Affairs at Cox Communications, and we serve throughout the south coast of Santa Barbara County.
Yeah. John Meredith. Come back around. Lisa Ludovici.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Ludovici. I'm Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications in Central and Northern California. And we serve Ventura, San Luis Obispo, Ventura County, San Luis Obispo County, and portions of northern Santa Barbara County.
Greg Hayward.
Good morning, Greg Hayward, Trackable Health. I'm also the president of Brian Chong's fan club.
Did he contract you to say that?
Yeah.
Rich Grayson.
Okay, there I am. Rich Graysick, City of Lompoc, Broadband Services Administrator. Yeah, kind of watch out and look out for everything that goes on around here, broadband wise.
Thank you. Christy Gutierrez.
Hi, guys. I'm new to this group. I'm here representing Ranch Wi-Fi in the beautiful town of Paso Robles. So nice to join in with you guys.
Thank you. We've got Josh Urquiaga, sorry.
Hello, Josh Urquiaga. I'm with the City of San Luis Obispo. I'm the Network Services Supervisor here and currently leading our broadband efforts.
Thanks for being here. Chris, did we get you back? You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am back. Apologize. I'm Chris Shergwin, CIO for the County of Santa Barbara. Good to see you all.
Thanks for being here. I'm running across my screen to see who is next. Stephen Sawyer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Sawyer, Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications, also known as Spectrum. I work with Lisa, and my area is primarily Ventura County and North LA County.
And I just saw who's next. Oh, Jesse Abadi, thanks for being here. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Jesse Abadi. I'm a district representative for Congressman Salud Carvajal's office.
Thanks for being here. Paul Cheney.
Paul Cheney, sorry for no video, don't have the bandwidth. I advocate for broadband in the Cuyama Valley.
In here. George Amandola.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Still, George Amendola. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and CISO for Syncrasy.io. We're a digital transformation and strategic consulting firm. My interest in broadband has started initially with Ventura, the city of Ventura and Ventura County. Little background, I'm previous executive at a local company formerly known as Star Telecommunications, which was a NASDAQ company in the mid-90s to early 2000s.
Thanks for being here. Cynthia Avila.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Cynthia Avila, Business Solutions Manager for the Workforce Development Board of Ventura County. Pleasure being with you guys today.
Being here. You see Pedro Chavez.
Hey, everybody. This is Pedro Chavez representing the residents in the city of Santa Paula.
Thanks for being here. And Carrie Gray.
Hi, thanks. Light's pretty bad. I'm the Carrie Gray project technical lead for the Northern Santa Barbara County Broadband Dual Ring Study, and I just returned from the 2023 Broadband Communities Conference in Houston.
Maybe you can share a little update with us later on in the call about what you gathered from that meeting. All right, did I miss anybody? Do we have anybody else?
John Meredith.
Oh, John Meredith.
Okay. I'm John Meredith. I'm a network technician here at Santa Barbara County, and Chris is my CIO.
Thanks everyone for being here and for doing such a rapid introduction round. I love it. So I'm going to start out with a couple of updates. First is the digital equity and BEAD statewide digital equity planning process and the BEAD conference. I actually would love to ask if Petra, you would like to share any information out first. The Santa Barbara Foundation is co-hosting the digital equity conference coming up.
Hi, Shelby. Thank you. I just want to go ahead and provide a friendly reminder about the BEAD conference. It will be taking place on June 1st, which is a Thursday. And if you haven't registered already, please do register. Our voices are very important in ensuring that the state digital equity plan really is informed about our regional needs. And so this is a meeting that will be for all three counties, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara County, and Ventura County. It will be held in Santa Maria at the Veterans Memorial Center. And so if you are commuting, we really encourage you all to go ahead and carpool. But this is going to be a really great conference. A lot of state leaders will be there. And again, this will inform the state digital equity plan. So it's really important to ensure we're representing our communities.
Thank you, Petra. And I'm going to build off of Petra's invitation to share a little bit more information on the background and why you may want to be in attendance at this meeting. First of all, the BEAD funding rulemaking is happening in the state of California right now. So BEAD funding is a federal pot of money. There's also a digital equity pot of money that's coming from the federal government down to state entities. And the states are required to develop a statewide digital equity plan in order to receive these funds. The statewide digital equity plan must be informed by community feedback. And that's one of this conference is one of the ways that they're gathering community feedback and input into the plan. Once they submit that statewide digital equity plan, sometime in, I believe, October, they will be eligible to receive the funding and will start accepting applications and distributing it to different communities across the state. It can be used to support broadband deployment. It can be used to support mapping, adoption efforts, workforce development. So this BEAD funding is connected to quite a bit of our efforts, quite a few of our efforts here in the Tri-County region. If you have input into the rulemaking for how the state of California should shape its distribution process and its application process, I encourage you to go to the California BEAD webpage. We'll put the link out after in a follow-up to this meeting and determine how you can become a participant in the public proceedings. Or make a public comment. So if you have a strong feelings about it one way or another, now's a good time to voice those opinions and that input while they're making the rules instead of waiting for the rules to be out and then finding a reason that it doesn't fit what you believe should be priorities for our community. So the conference that will be held on June 1st in Santa Maria is really intended for municipal governments, for community leaders, education, workforce development, community members. This is an opportunity for all of us to join together and actually work together to identify the barriers to deployment and adoption in our communities, and to work on developing strategies that we are prioritizing as a community and that we want to hand up to the state to be included in the statewide digital equity plan. This is an opportunity for representing what are the core opportunities that we have and the challenges that we're facing. So I really encourage you alongside Petra to register for this event and to share the link with other folks in your network that should be at the table for that discussion. There will also be an opportunity to inform policy outcomes. So what do you believe should be policies that are leading the digital equity work? This is a great chance to, again, advocate at the beginning of a process rather than reading a process that was formed without your input and reviewing it and saying, oh, this doesn't fit with the realities on the ground. Now's the chance to get ahead of that. So we really encourage you to join that meeting. It is free. We understand that it is a trek for some people. And if we could have done a meeting in each county, we would have, but the state is sponsoring this and they chose a 3-county location for this regional meeting. In addition to these working sessions where you'll be informing the priorities of the statewide digital equity plan, CPUC, CDT, Caltrans, Golden State Network will all be at this meeting listening to the conversations, and they have agreed to host a working session after the main bulk of the conference. I think it's going to start around 2:30, 3:30, where they would like to speak with the community. They'll be talking about the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. So for those of you who have concerns, questions, ideas about the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, that's a great place for you to show up and speak to people in person. There will also be an opportunity to talk about the Last Mile federal funding program. So they'll be sharing information about that funding opportunity that we'll share a little bit more in this meeting. And then they will also be there to listen to your inputs, right? My understanding is that they are going to have a map of our region and they want to know where your priorities are. They want you to point to them on the map. Don't quote that on me. It came to me in an email. It could change between now and June 1st, but that's my understanding of what that session is going to be about. An additional session, if you're not plugged into the infrastructure conversation and you're more geared towards adoption, you will have an opportunity to attend a session after the main conference as well, that really discusses the Affordable Connectivity Program and helps to train you or your staff members or folks in your network on how to be an enrollment specialist for the Affordable Connectivity Program and how to connect folks in your community to this federal subsidy that covers the cost of high-speed internet for many communities. So if you have any questions about it, Petra and I are both available to talk to you and to share more information about that conference. We hope you'll register and join us. Other opportunities to provide input to the state digital equity plan, attending outcome area working groups. They have a working group for educators. They have one for healthcare workers. They've got one for economic development and workforce development folks. Digital literacy and digital inclusion and accessibility folks, tribal communities that will have their own session as well, an outcome area for tribal communities, and also for civic leaders. So you can, again, click the link for the May meetings, and I believe they'll post the June meetings as well for the outcome area working groups. And those are just really specific conversations around how digital equity impacts those sectors specifically. And finally, I'm going to strongly encourage you to check out the DEAN tool. This is the Digital Equity Ecosystem Mapping tool. And the state of California is using this tool to better understand what programs are already in live and acting in communities, what those organizations' challenges are, where there are opportunities for improvement, where there are opportunities to fill a gap. I believe, if I can call on you, Jamie, I believe Jamie just completed it for the EDC Digital Upskilling Program. Do you have a moment? Would you mind sharing your experience walking through the Digital Equity Ecosystem Mapping tool, Jamie?
Hi, Shelby. Of course, yeah, I'd be happy to. So yes, I just completed it. It asks basic questions about the type of organization we are, the type of work that we're doing, and the different programs that we offer, because we're doing 3 different types of digital upskilling initiatives. It took a little longer than the estimated 10 minutes to fill out, but it still didn't take long. It was easy. And yes, it's great to have everything on the radar as we're going into these important times, trying to come up with our state plan. I really appreciate you tipping me off to this, Shelby. And anyway, yeah, it was relatively painless.
Thank you. I went through it sort of surreptitiously to see if I could gather some information. And one of the things I was a little bit surprised about is that it really asked, about your needs, right? The organization's needs. Where are you already resourcing these programs, but where's a gap for you? And I thought that was really important in terms of assessing for the BEAD funding, where they need to really invest money in the future when that funding comes down. Any questions about the BEAD conference or the DEAN tool or any other insights into that?
Just a question at the kind of the giving feedback to the folks at the BEAD workshop. If I am able to attend this, I'm going to be arriving probably like pretty late in the day, just it's a long way up there. But if I miss, say, the first hour, I won't be missing public comment. It's really the workshops and those small groups. I'll be able to say, hey, this is what we need in Moore Park, and we'd love for you to include these categories. That would be okay.
Yes. So while we would love all of your input throughout the day, we understand that not everyone can sacrifice a whole day to be at this conference. So if you are aiming for that specific workshop, I would say aim for around 2 o'clock arrival. I think that it's scheduled to be from 2:30 to 3:30. That may adjust slightly as we look at, when lunch can be delivered, et cetera. But I believe it'll be around 2:30 when that workshop starts. So you may get there just for the tail end of some of the other conversations.
Thanks, Shelby.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. We'll move forward in our agenda here. Just some regional updates. As some of you may know, CASIF grants have a couple of deadlines coming up. The infrastructure grant deadline was moved from April 1st to May 1st and then to June 1st. They won't be giving another extension. We learned yesterday, I had a couple of ISPs who were asking if there would be a third extension. There will not. So if you are planning to submit an infrastructure grant application for this year's infrastructure grant evaluation, June 1st is your date. If you have questions about it, if there are some outstanding pieces of information you need help with, Tim and I have been vetting those questions for the most part and connecting them to your county rep. So either Bill or Russ and Michael. If you have questions, please email the questions to us initially, and we'll see if we can answer them by email, or if not, we can open up a bigger discussion with you through an appointment. So please feel free to reach out to us to set that up. While the LATA grant program was largely expended, there, I believe it was $4 million, maybe $5 million was set aside specifically for tribal LATA grants. 2.4 million of that is still available. So if you work with any tribal partners, if you are part of a tribal organization that would be eligible for a local agency technical assistance grant, those are being accepted on a rolling basis. We would love to talk to you a little bit about your application idea if you need help, and we'd be happy to provide whatever support we can for that. So if you are a tribal organization, or if you work with tribal organizations, please feel free to get that information out there, because that funding is still available, and there's not a set deadline for that. It's really based on the expenditure of all the funding. The USDA Broadband Technical Assistance Grant targets organizations that serve rural communities. There's a very specific definition in each of our county of which aspects are eligible for this rural support. The application is due June 20th, and you do have to go through the US, I can't remember what the name of it, someone else will know, that the main government grant application process, grants.gov, I think is what it's called. So this type of grant can take a long time to submit. If you're interested in it, we want to know, we're interested in hearing from you for any sort of funding that you're applying for, just so we can kind of get a sense at the BCPC of what's going on in our communities. But this is another grant that is up and running and available to support broadband deployment in our more rural communities. The last mile federal funding account, there's a soft opening estimate for June 30th. My understanding is that once this application opens, whether it's late June or early July, it will be open for about 3 months for what they're calling the first application window. When we asked, does that mean there will be a second application window? They are not sure if there will be a second application window, because they're trying to figure out, how much of the funding account will be requested and approved and expended in the first application window. I would love to invite Jory Wolf to share some insight, as he's had some recent conversations with CPUC that he said he would be willing to share. Jory, are you on the call still?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
Like the consortia, we've recently spoken with the CPUC. We have periodic calls with them, but a recent call that we had just last week really informed us about what they were looking for in last mile applications. And Shelby and I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to share that knowledge with you. One of the surprising things that was stated was they were looking and hoping to see applications from governments and governments with providers, and that they were looking for government-owned networks, but also they were hoping to see some utilities springing out of this as well. Of course, many of governments throughout the state of California are not in a position to start up a new utility. Those that do have electric utilities are obviously in a much better place to be able to do that, with trucks and the manpower and other people power in which to do that. But very, very unlikely that many of the applicants are going to qualify under the utility model. Outside of that, the idea here is when you apply for a last mile, that they're expecting you to have an operator in tow. They would prefer for you to have a partner who is experienced in marketing, operating, and maintaining networks, fiber networks in particular. The emphasis is again on fiber, and the priority in terms of rankings will be for those projects that are fiber and not necessarily wireless. In some cases, there are opportunities to use wireless for last mile when last mile is too expensive. It's too expensive to build last mile with fiber. And so they will be open to receiving applications that do include wireless for last mile, but they're particularly interested in applications that have fiber in the last mile. What does that mean in particular? It means that they're not encouraging and they're not looking to see applications that have a lot of middle mile or only middle mile. If your application does not have a last mile component, the information that we heard was you might as well not even bother applying. So what does that mean for all of you that are considering applying for the last mile? And that is, you can build middle mile in order to achieve your last mile. So there's many ways in which you can do this. So there can be the way in which the middle mile is owned by government as the applicant, and the last mile will be built out and owned by the partner who applies with the government, or the government can build out the middle mile to achieve last mile, but the application needs to be very directed that you have a limited middle mile, and the middle mile has to be only middle mile for accomplishing connecting premises that are unserved in the last mile. So if you're thinking about connecting government facilities in your community or in your county and neglecting last mile and premises that are unserved, your application will score very poorly. And so again, we are encouraging you to consider we're expecting that you will consider and include last mile in your application. Those were the major points that were stressed by the CPUC. They wanted us to share these with everyone. I did put out a call for questions prior to the reach out that we had with the CPUC. And I did get a large number of questions and of comments from our clients and many other cities throughout the state. We shared those questions and those comments with the CPUC. They are now pondering over those questions and will be providing answers. And I hopefully will be providing those answers to Shelby. And Shelby will then work with all of you in getting that information, those answers to those questions understood. I'll make myself available for clarification in any way that I can. And of course, we expect to have follow-up conversations with the CPUC. We haven't set dates yet, but we expect to do this on a regular basis. One of the things that they asked for us to provide to them was what we know about cities and counties and other applicants in the state of California, what in fact they are doing right now. And we were able to address about 40, almost 40 agencies throughout the state of California and giving them more detail than what was included in their application. Or I should say more current detail than what was included in their application for LADA planning, giving them a status of where they are now in their planning efforts, when they expect to finish their planning, and if they've completed design engineering, or at least 30% of that being a conceptual design, how many miles of fiber they're expecting to build. And I do believe that the next step is they're going to want to see the networks that have actually been designed and are contemplated in these conceptual designs that you're all working on or should be working on as part of your master plans and feasibility studies and other work that you're doing, possibly with design engineering, if you've already completed your feasibility studies and master planning. I will continue to provide updates to Shelby and to all of you as we get new information from the CPUC. There are some things that you need to be aware of. They did indicate on their website that there will be some changes to their website. Many of the questions and the comments, especially the comments that we received from agencies, spoke to how poorly organized the current website is. They understand that, and they're working on improving that website, the documentation and the materials that they expect to release. You all probably know, and if you don't know, the FCC has just released their new iteration of their mappings. And I think we all saw when they did that last November, it took the state about 3 months, maybe 4 months, to put together their version of what's called, well, I call it affectionately the hexagonal map, which is part of the FFA account on the CPUC's website. That hexagonal map will now be updated because of the new information that was obtained by the FCC. So the state will refresh what is available now on that website with the new FCC data. They were also going to be providing tools because we were concerned that a number of you aren't going to be completing your planning processes before the last mile window opens in late June or early July. They recognized us. And the idea is they're going to be providing some new tools or downloadable census tracts and block information. So lookups will be a little bit easier, and applying for the last mile will be simpler than it was for LADA in that regard. But they also will be providing some tools for how to calculate construction costs, based upon a conceptual design that you might have. They're not talking about back of the napkin designs. They're talking about real conceptual designs, but will give you tools based upon the number of linear feet in those designs that you're putting together, either in Google Earth, AutoCAD, or in ArcGIS or other GIS tools. And that will give you some idea of how to estimate costs, not only costs for construction, but also costs for design engineering, as well as costs for operations. So they are trying to get everyone poised and ready for last mile, even if you didn't finish your LADA planning work. Back to you, Shelby.
Thanks. I want to pitch it to anyone on the call that has questions or needs clarification, or if you just want to share some of your thoughts on this this update and these processes.
Is the county of Ventura planning on applying for the federal last mile with some sort of project to leverage its middle mile network?
I'll leave that to Terry. Terry, let me know if you'd like me to respond.
For you to respond to it, so go ahead.
The county of Ventura is anticipating, well, is expecting to apply for last mile. They have plans for applying for last mile. They have put out an RFP and are finishing up the RFP for selecting a partner to assist them in applying for last mile. They also have a contract in place for a grant writing firm to complete the last mile application for them. And actually, work has already started for Ventura County.
And can you share, maybe you see, but where geographically you're looking at doing those projects?
Yeah, I'm a member of your fan club too, Brian. So I can loosely, it is along the 126, connecting the city of Santa Clarita through Piru, through Fillmore, through Santa Paula to the city of Ventura, and then south from the city of Ventura into the city of Oxnard, and then into Hueneme. And then on the 118, it connects to the 126 on Los Angeles Avenue, or should I say, what is that, Saticoy? And then travels to the 118 and goes all the way to Simi.
I'm sorry, I meant the last mile project location.
That is the last mile project.
Oh, so it'll do, okay, cool. That's good news for us.
Well, actually, I think Jordy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to have to specify a last mile location. Not, we can't, at least as I understood it, we just talked about this. We can't just say, oh, we're doing this middle mile because it will benefit some last mile work. We actually have to include a last mile location or locations as part of this. Is that correct, Jordy?
That is true. And there are things still to be worked out because there is some overlap that we're considering is going to occur between some of the cities that are also doing master planning along those routes, like Moore Park, that you have done. And I know, Brian, we've got some council considerations to still address upcoming, and I'll share more information with you on that privately. But then there are master plans that are currently taking place in Hueneme. There is a master plan in Santa Paula, which will take place. And there is other work that is taking place in the city of Ventura in the realm of design engineering and a refresh of their master plan. So there's quite a bit of activity in Ventura County, and we are just about ready within the next couple of weeks to reassemble all of those parties that are in what's called phase 1 of the Ventura County network build, to make sure that we can adjudicate any overlap, but also that we can commingle funds if necessary and provide for the proper partnerships. Bill Simmons and Shelby and Bruce Stinsley and Mr. Wiley over at the COG and at the EDC will be working very closely on this project. They also have a LATA application in, and that's about to be approved by the CPUC in the December tranche, and they will be working on a JPA and governance structure to support the operations of the last mile, to open this up to new providers and other interested parties. There will be extra conduit that is going into the ground to enable others to participate. So this is not going to be a government-only network. There's going to be opportunities for leasing. We're also finalizing conversations with the state of California on where it's building its middle mile, and also discussing pro quo what they build versus what we build. And it actually might be the case, and we expect it will be the case. And this is something that Terry continues to pursue, and that is they probably would want to build or joint build with the county on portions of the 126 that they have slated for the middle mile.
So, and I'd like to just point out something too, because Joy just covered a lot of ground there. He talked about what the county is doing. He talked about what other cities are doing. But the important thing I want to point out is he also talked about the timeline for LATA grant. And he's well, I shouldn't say throwing out, because this has been well thought through, trust me. But he said, we're going to start looking, this thing opens up in like the June, July timeframe. So that's 2 to 4 weeks from now. So we can't get into too deep into creating a JPA and looking at master planning and have all that come together to submit the grant application that we're planning to submit. So I think I just want to reinforce that there are several low-income, disadvantaged, underserved county neighborhoods from Santa Clarita to the city of Ventura. And so if there is a further along solution, last mile solution there, and they're farther ahead than we are, I would say we would absolutely want to talk about including that into our grant application so that we could make it happen. The tricky part, I think, there is that we're expending county money, county-owned grant money, or however I would say that. But the county isn't, I don't believe, is planning to pay to do final mile work inside city's jurisdictions. Not this part, I'm not exactly clear on. So we have that issue too. And is that true, Jory?
No, we are not. We're providing the middle mile for the last mile partner to provide the last mile build. That will be part of the application. The state will clearly understand that the state is going to be building the middle mile and hopefully building the middle mile along with the state and building their middle mile portions of that same route. And we will be depending upon private providers to build out the last mile. We have one provider that will be in our contract with the county, but we're looking for others, and there will probably be subsequent rounds for partnerships for others to use available conduit in the future. So for those of you who are providers and are interested in those segments of the county that we've discussed, there will be opportunities for you in the future.
So let me just let me close my comment with, so I've been doing this for at least 2.5 years now. Typically, the time marks on these conversations that we've had for 2.5 years are measured in months or longer. This is going to be measured in weeks. The submission is going to happen in weeks. Maybe not, might go into a month or two, but we're measuring in weeks. So We need to make sure that as we talk about the partnerships and all the things that we're doing with everyone else, that we're talking weeks to be ready to submit. We're not going to submit in December because those that didn't hit the LATA cutoff didn't get any money. And we don't want that to happen to us this time. We submitted early, we got LATA money. We want to submit early this time, so we'll get the final mile grant money as well. That's all I have on that. Thank you.
And
Hey guys, quick question about that, please. After all this time and after all these efforts, to have a shotgun approach without a lot of disclosure coming into summer and summer vacations, it's pretty hard to stomach that one. I just want you to know that.
Fair comment.
I just want to say clearly from Moore Park's standpoint, we understand the county's desire to target unincorporated communities first. That makes perfect sense.
And actually, just to be clear on that one, Brian, if you have a master plan set for a final mile community that you want to go after, and that's in better shape than ours, I would say let's use that one and partner with you to do that. But going back to George's comment, it's a fair comment. We put out an RFI well over a year ago. That's when we stated our intention. Well, actually, I stated our intention to do this at the beginning of 2021. We put out the RFI in the middle of 2022. We actually got an RFP on the street at the beginning of 2023. So I appreciate and I understand your comment. But I just want to add that context. This isn't something that we're announcing today. This has been something we've been talking on these various calls for over 2 years.
John,
Have you publicized or made public the partner for the middle mile RFP?
We have not decided yet. That decision has been made. And actually, that whole process is governed by our procurement department. And I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. We have to run everything through that. So we're still, I can tell you definitively no decision has been made at this time. We're still working on that.
Thank you.
And John Meredith, did you have your hand up?
I did. Jory, you had mentioned earlier in your information, which was incredible, thank you, that if you're interested in the LATA grant, that you should also be thinking about the community that you're trying to connect. For instance, I'll have a site that's way out there in a rural area, say a fire station. If I can get the last mile to one of my main distribution points there in Santa Maria, that in order to submit the grant, I should be thinking about how to not support the community, but allow the community the opportunity to also be within LATA grant to be considered. Is that roughly about right? Did I understand correctly?
Well, to clarify, I think what you're asking, John, the LATA grant, of course, is already closed. This is for last mile, which is coming up. And
I'm sorry, last mile, right?
Understood. But for you to connect the fire station, there needs to be premises that are unserved that are part of the last mile solution. So if you are needing to build a middle mile to get to those unserved premises, and it could be a trailer park, it could be a mobile home park or mobile home estates, whatever it might be. The maps show very clearly. And if you like, I'd be happy to get on a call with you and show you all the resources that you can use to understand where those unserved premises are. But you do need to include unserved premises. But to build the middle mile, it would be advantageous to you to build the middle mile through right past that fire station or close to it, in which to connect a lateral and connect that fire station while you're connecting last mile unserved premises.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Just popping the link for the interactive broadband map also in there, so you can just kind of take a gander at that. And again, there's updates coming to all of these maps. All the maps that CPUC has are consistently undergoing review and updates. So keep that in mind. And if you have comments on them, we're happy to help share those with CPUC. Jory is also happy to share that information. The Broadband Consortium, they're really relying on Broadband Consortia to filter through the questions that you have. And I think Jory did a great job of representing the regional and statewide interests and sort of gathering questions together as well. So if you have them, CPUC isn't really responding directly to individual questions as much as they're going to refer you over to one of their consortia partners to filter through those questions. So feel free to reach out to us, and Jory, of course, is a great resource as well.
I encourage you all to become very familiar with the maps that Shelby has indicated in her slide deck. And they will change, but I'm sure the links will stay the same. And so please take a look at them. There are two very key maps that all of you can use, and they're very clear on where these unserved households are. There's a hexagonal map, which is the FCC related map, if you've ever seen the FCC map, and it shows you concentrations of unserved premises. So it tells you if there's 3 or 10 or 20. And there's 3 different shadings. There's tan, there's orange, and there's brown, or like a deep red. And that really tells you where these clusters of unserved are. And that's what you should be designing for. Then there's the other map, which Shelby mentioned, which is the broadband interactive map, or interactive broadband map from the CPUC. And if you want to know the detail, because the hexagonal map doesn't show you the actual parcel, this map shows you the parcel, and you could actually see the dot centered on the parcel that is deemed unserved. So you know exactly where it is. Where with the hexagonal map, you just have a proximity and you don't see the underlying street names underneath it. But if you go to the interactive broadband map, it'll actually show you all that content, plus the point identifying the parcel that you should be considering constructing to. Look for large concentrations of these. I have not yet worked with a city or addressed questions from a city where we could not find a significant amount of unserved and a sufficient amount of unserved for them to apply.
I'm looking at that map right now. It's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary, the level of detail on the link that Shelby just sent.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of layers that really that really illustrate the community that's in those areas. And actually, Tim may have a lot to say about this. One thing that we've heard from ISPs that's frustrating is you cannot obtain the coordinates yourself for your own GIS mapping. You can only obtain the blocks, and that's for privacy issues, I believe. But Tim, did you have anything you'd like to share about the maps from your standpoint?
Well, just that, like you were getting into the map, the interactive broadband map, the one that shows the dots that Joy was just mentioning that you can zoom in and you can see those dots directly on the parcel. We are interested in obtaining those dots directly, because it's one thing to see the data, and then it's another thing to get the data so you can do different manipulations upon the data. But at the present time, the CPUC's policy is to they will show you the data on the map, but they will not share it out, citing data licensing restrictions, which is a point of frustration, and we're in a conversation with them about that. And so the best that they will do at the present time is they do have a data layer that you can download if you look around in links off of that map to the source layers that populate the map. And it is an aggregation of the dots by census block. So you don't get the exact positions of the dots that you could use to turn into addresses, but you can find out how many dots indicative of eligible locations or priority eligible locations there are within given census blocks, which is of some utility, but it's not everything that everybody would want.
Yeah, you need, it's a two-pronged approach, really. And, you know, the CPUC cites licensing issues. I believe it's a matter of cost, in which why you can't download the actual point map data from the interactive broadband map. But as Tim says, it's very effective to be able to download the hexagonal map, which shows concentrations of unserved premises. And then for your detail, you can, you know, of course, do screenshots and other kinds of things to be able to understand which parcels that you're going to be addressing. And from that, you can obtain your address information. So it's, I think the state feels that they've gone far enough without maybe having to spend too much money. It's not our preference, but it seems like it's going to work to some extent. And please know, as much of a pain it is for us to deal with, it's going to be more of a pain for them, because they've got to deal with it on the back end when they audit and review your applications.
This seems to indicate individual parcels that are clearly within the service area of cable and
Yes, good point, Steve. So one of the things about these maps is that they don't consider DSL coverage as service.
Correct.
And I'll
oh, go
also
ahead.
just quickly add, there are some funky things on the maps. For example, Shelby and I were just mobile home parks where there might be multiple units on one, parcel of land. So just, really recommending that if there are areas in question on these maps that are looking like they are underserved, reach out to ISPs to confirm service area and serviceability.
And what I'll add to that is the infrastructure grant application process. After your application is submitted on June 1st, there's a window for challenges. So ISPs who are serving areas that have applications into CPUC will have a chance to say, actually, we do serve that area. They will be required to submit proof, and then the CPUC will come back to consortia and the original applicant and the challenger and try to really mediate what the actual need is. So there is a process in that infrastructure grant account. I have not heard if a similar process will be used for the federal funding account. Jory, I don't know if that was part of the questions, but they do recognize that the maps are imperfect, and they do want to have create a conversation about what needs to be done rather than a blanket approval or disapproval process.
Yeah. Also, I think since we're really focused right now on last mile, I think it's important, though, to understand that this is really an ongoing process. So working, with your incumbent providers, talking to them and seeing if they would provide services, or if they're providing services, is your first step, no doubt. But if they aren't and don't intend to, then or if they're interested in applying with you to do just that, then you can, of course, apply and provide service to these unserved households and premises. But the FFA account is not the only source, and you're no doubt, are you going to have enough money? Because there's 1 billion for urban and 1 billion for rural. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Ventura County only got 28 million. That's not going to go very far. Los Angeles County got 105 million. That was one of the big winners, believe it or not. But 105 million, when you look at these maps, that's going to go really quickly, and it's not going to serve every neighborhood that has unserved households. And so the first in is going to be the first served. Just like LADA. If you didn't get your application in by December 31st, you got it in January, February, or March, They wrote you a letter and said, sorry, we ran out of money. You're not going to be considered. Please take that to heart. The same thing is going to happen when you apply for last mile. Do not wait. Get started. You're competing with your associates, with your neighbors, unfortunately. And those are not just cities and counties, those are also councils of governments and other public agencies and the private sector as well. So there are many, many entities that are going after this money. But again, say you got a share of that. Say you got 5 million. 5 million for infrastructure is not going to go very far. So make sure that you prioritize, because this is going to be an incremental build through various grant sources over a prolonged period of time. You all missed CASIF, I would imagine. Did any of you submit a CASIF application before or are intending to before the June 1st deadline?
We know of about 4 in the Tri-County area that are going in that we've connected with. That does not mean that there are not others, but the Broadband Consortium has learned of about 4, I think, spread out over the county area.
Yeah,
And
it's
I- and-
unfortunate.
oh,
It was
go ahead.
just the timing of CASIF came in right in overlap, so to speak, with LADA. And people just didn't have the time to do any LADA work to really prepare for CASIF, unfortunately.
Well, and this is a good segue. There will likely be an additional funding for the CASIF infrastructure grant next year. That comes from a different resource, so it's reallocated on an annual basis. So we'll see how much, if it runs out before then. But so at this point, they've extended the CASIF infrastructure grant far beyond most of their other CASIF grants.
So thank you, Shelby, because that's where I was headed, just to remind everyone about those bullets in your slide, that this is again, a multi-pronged approach. And you're probably going to end up needing 2, maybe even 3 grant sources to complete what your vision is for your community.
Right. And so some other opportunities are the public housing and adoption grants. Those are due this round on July 1st. There was funding allocated for them for next year as well. In fact, they increased the percentage of the CASIF budget that will be going to public housing, adoption, and infrastructure grants, and decreased the consortium account, not because we aren't going to be allocated funding, but because I think there are fewer consortia than there were in previous years. So a reminder that, when you're looking at your community, if there's public housing or affordable housing units that are in your community, it may be more appropriate to apply for a public housing grant. If you're looking at broadband access for community centers, the adoption grant covers that, right? Because broadband access is part of the adoption grant. If you're looking at digital literacy programs and not strictly infrastructure, but if there's a different need in the community, that's where adoption grants can come in. The deadline for those 2 programs is July 1st. There may be another deadline in January, but if there is a project that you know about, now's the time to submit for public housing and adoption grants. Also looking beyond just CASA, right? You've got USDA, you've got Department of Labor grants that are coming down the pike. So there are other opportunities, and we are working as a consortium to organize those a little more so it's more clear what opportunities are aligned with what areas of broadband adoption you may be working with. I do want to leave, we have about 20 more minutes. I wanted to just frame the end of our conversation here and allow time for updates from anyone on the call who'd like to provide one. I wanted to frame it in this graphic that we've been working to put together to really help everyone on our calls and who works with the consortium and who's working in digital equity in general to understand the connection between all the different aspects of digital equity and knowing that infrastructure is the base of it, right? When we talk to communities about the challenges that they're facing when it comes to digital equity, the communities that already have providers in their neighborhoods, they might cite affordability as an issue. They might say, oh, I don't have a computer. They might say, oh, I don't know how to use the computer. But the communities that don't even have any providers, there's a couple in Santa Barbara County that I'm speaking with regularly, the Cuyama Valley, Los Alamos. These areas need infrastructure as a base, right? And they don't even care about digital literacy programs because they can't connect to anything. They don't even have cell access in some of these neighborhoods. So all of the efforts that you are putting forth in your own industries, in your own areas, are connected to one another. And we'd really like to start framing the conversation around digital equity in the Tri-County area in terms of collaboration opportunities, in terms of sharing information that you can share, right? Knowing where there are ISPs who offer the Affordable Connectivity Program and working with those program providers to make sure that their customers are connected to their affordability and digital literacy programs. For gaining information from our digital equity coalitions. We've got a digital equity coalition in Santa Barbara County, in Ventura County. We've got a digital equity roundtable in San Luis Obispo County. Those folks are made up of organizations that are working in communities with community members to identify their challenges. So understanding that neighborhoods that are priority eligible or underserved according to the maps, being able to go to the digital equity coalitions and saying, what is the problem that there's not infrastructure here? Or is the problem actually one of adoption? Is the problem one of digital literacy, that they don't know how to upgrade their speeds, or that they aren't clear on when to update their equipment, right? So all of these are interlinked together. And we'll continue to develop this idea and frame our conversations moving forward. I think especially when it comes to funding applications, identifying what's the appropriate organization and what's the collaborative effort here, where we can leverage multiple sources of funding to connect all of our communities. And with that, I do want to open up the conversation. I feel like we had a great insight into the last mile account and local priorities. We heard a great update from Ventura County, but I want to share the floor with San Luis Obispo County and Santa Barbara County in case you have any updates you'd like to share, or if there's anything from individual communities or providers that you'd like to share.
Shelby, do you have any update on what's happening up in northern Santa Barbara County with Teleworks and Econ Alliance? I have not heard from them in a while, so just curious if you have an update.
I do not have a specific update. I know that their timeline for reporting out, they're doing information gathering and connecting with communities in this sort of third quarter, but I believe that Carrie is on the call and he would be the person to ask for that update.
Sure, we have our first report will be due June 1st. Then we'll have the dual routes July 1st. August will be the business plan, and then we should finish it up by September. We are meeting with SPCAG tomorrow on a Zoom, and we're moving along. Had a really great update yesterday with Teleworks, so we're moving right along and hope to be right on time with those 3 reports. Also, Shelby, I have 3 things I would share from the conference when it's appropriate. These are higher level things, but you guys have touched a base with a lot of stuff. But during the conference, there were 3 announcements when I was in different workshops. And one was a company called Vetro, VETRO, out of Portland, was awarded the California Golden System of Record for all of the fiber optics, for all 10,000 miles of the fiber optics. So Vetro will be the system of record using their software. They also announced there that 2 contractors had been awarded the first 3,000 miles of buying fiber optics and all the gear, front end loading for the first 3,000 miles. That's been awarded for 2 companies. And then I have a question, but Utopia out of Utah was selected by the Golden State Connect Authority. And that's 40 counties that are trying to put together broadband for rural areas. And Utopia was announced as the partner to do the open access infrastructure, but only in 38 counties out of the 40, and Santa Barbara wasn't included in their press release. So we're just wondering why, and there was another county, but Santa Barbara is a member of the Golden State Connect. However, they're not part of the Utopia agreement. So perhaps somebody knows more than I do about that. But they've done really great work, Utopia, in Utah, Montana, some of the other states, Idaho, of open access. They'll be charging $20, $30 a month for running the open access. And then they may have as many as 16 ISPs. And the people that sign up for the program pick which ISP and which program, and that's where the pricing comes from. So it sounded like a really good deal, but for 38 counties, not for Santa Barbara. So that's my update from the Broadband Consortium conference.
I don't have more information about why Santa Barbara would have been left out. Does anyone on the call? I'd be happy to look into it if no one has more information on that.
The chairman of the consortium this year is one of the supervisors out of, I think it's Calabasas County up north. So I have his notes.
Oh, there it is.
I don't have my book in front of me, so I'm actually mobile. So I can probably, Shelby, I can probably give you his name.
Sure.
Giameri or something like that.
Carrie, is Santa Barbara County deemed rural or urban?
Well, I mean, we're part of the connects for the rural broadband. That they formed the 40 for rural, but I don't know what the criteria was when the two counties were left off of Utopia's agreement with them. So I don't know, Jordy.
Carrie, is it possible that Santa Barbara was left off of the strategic plan that was that RCRC was going to do, but not left off of the actual ability to work with Utopia? That's what I was informed of, but I could be mistaken.
I don't know, Chris, but I think, it's worth finding out why it's, it's 38 instead of 40. I think we'd all like to know what the situation is and how we can perhaps join them at the appropriate time.
And my conversations with RCRC indicated that, Santa Barbara County had opted into RCRC after the original EDA grant had been submitted that is funding all of these RCRC strategy plan. So Santa Barbara County wasn't eligible for that strategy plan part, but she assured me that that Santa Barbara County would be eligible for everything else moving forward. So if that's the case, we should probably connect with them to just clarify what's going on. So maybe Chris and we can coordinate and see where we can get some information around that.
And I'll send you the gentleman's name when I get my notebooks, okay?
Yes, thank you, Carrie.
Shelby, I think another thing to look into when you do have the year of that contact. I've always wondered why there were only there was an RFP for only 26 of those counties.
And was it that there were only 26 counties included in the RFP, or that they had lumped some of them together? I can't remember.
There were only 26. They had lumped them all into one RFP, but there were only 26 represented.
It could be that the others already had plans, maybe.
No, actually not. Believe it or not, because, for example, we were working with the county of Merced, and unbeknownst to the county, and until one of the supervisors brought it up, said, "Hey, we're part of the RCRC," and the RCRC said, "Yeah, we were going to do a master plan for you," but they withdrew, obviously, because we had already completed it for Merced. but they would have been included in the 26 up until that point. So something is also determining whether or not they're representing doing the planning part in LADA. And it'd be interesting to find out the reasons for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Although I talk to them from time to time. If you don't get all that, I can bring it up with you.
Shelby, it's Jack Garamendi from Calaveras, and the vice chair is David Griffin from Alpine. I'll send that to you by chat.
Thanks. Any other updates we should consider? About 9 minutes left on the call, but we can also give those 9 minutes back to you unless someone has something they'd like to bring.
I'd like to bring up that there's a very interesting merger which is taking place between Intelsat being acquired by Viasat, which would create a formidable competitor to Starlink. And especially because Intelsat has so many government contracts entrenched for decades. So it should be very interesting as that shapes up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hearing from more and more of our rural communities that are not, wired at this point, that they're opting into Starlink. And satisfied.
It's funny that you mentioned that because Halama Beach out here, just outside of Lompoc, they went Starlink. Actually, some of our fire stations do it because they just want to have the access, even though they do have some sort of access there, but they do it on their own.
Yeah.
And they're happy about it.
Yeah.
I have a general comment, Shelby. I don't know if this applies to any of you, but I'm going to put it out there just in case it does, or maybe the word of mouth will spread. But just because you didn't get a LADA award, for example, if you didn't get your application in before December 31st, that doesn't mean that you can't apply for last mile. You can still apply for last mile, even though you didn't get LADA. And there are many ways in which to do that. You can do what is a very simple and easy exercise to come up with a middle mile backbone that goes to the unserved premises that you find in those maps that Shelby gave you links to today. And if you don't know how to go about doing that yourself with, say, your GIS technician, or if you don't have a GIS technician, with someone in your public works department, I would be happy to help you. You feel free to reach out. I think Shelby, I'm not going to put you on the hook for this, but between the CP, the consortia and Magellan, I think we should be able to get you what you need to at least understand what you need to submit for last mile. But please know you are still eligible if you have unserved premises, and you should still consider applying if that's your intent.
Okay, I think if nobody has anything else, we'll just call it, and then we can get back to lunch 6 minutes early. Thank you for being here. We'll put out the recording in case anyone needs it, and we'll be happy to talk with y'all next month, if not before then.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
very much.
Hope to see you all on June
we-
1st at the BEAD conference.
Bye-bye.
Yes, I will send the slideshow out as well.